Welcome to episode 142. On today's episode of Meeple to Meeple, I'm hanging out with two awesome guests from Wonderful World Board Games, otherwise known as WWBG. I've got Lenny, the founder, and Phil, the director of language and communications. Now, WWBG isn't just helping players find their next favorite game. They are right in the thick of publishing and distribution across Asia, connecting creators, gamers, and communities. Moreover, these guys are living and breathing the board game scene in Taiwan and across Asia. They have a front row seat to the gaming scene in their area, and they've got some great stories and insights to share. We'll talk about what makes the community there so unique, how the hobby is mature and growing, and the way that board games connect people all across the region. They're also going to share their outward-facing connections to both the United States and French gaming markets while operating in Taiwan. Most importantly, they're going to share the challenges and successes of maintaining intentional introspection while circumnavigating global stereotypes. It's going to be a fun and eye-opening conversation as we expand and nurture our community around the world. It's community. Lenny, Phil, how are you guys doing?
That was beautiful. I don't know if we should start talking. I'm just listening. I'm doing excellent. It was great to connect with you at Gen Con this year, and I'm glad we can continue that conversation here.
I didn't even know you guys met in Gen Con.
Oh, yeah, you're on the other booth.
It's really nice to meet you, PG.
You too, Lenny. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on and giving me some of your time. It's interesting to note that we were just talking before the recording. Taiwan was recently hit by a major super typhoon, so we're really happy that you and your family and your company is safe and still in operations. Yep. It's also interesting because one of the things that I really love about this podcast, it gives me these opportunities. It's 9:30 in the morning tomorrow where you are, and it's 8:30 in the evening here. This is wild and crazy. This is why I love this community so very much, and I'm really glad y'all agreed to this. So thank you. And you're my first Taiwanese representatives on the show.
We will try to set the benchmark.
Who's the first Asia?
So that would have been our good friend Palgan from Mosaic Games. Yeah, they're in India, and so he was my first. Now I've got you guys on, which is great, and of course I've got so many listeners in the EU and the UK with so many of my previous guests from the UK. So.
Yeah, I regretted not connecting with Mosaic at Gen Con because I was interested in that episode, and unfortunately just a little bit too late, so hopefully next time.
Yep. So so my first question for the both of you, and you can either of you can answer this however you want. So tell me how you got into the hobby of modern gaming. What was the first game that sparked your love for board games?
You want to go first?
I'm just hoping you say Batman. I think so. To begin, I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm from the Midwest. I've been in Taiwan for 15 years, which is why I work here. But I grew up with gaming just being a part of our family culture. A lot of trick taking during the holidays. We played Sheephead, which have I introduced that to you?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. We played Sheephead every holiday season, every family gathering. Also, my aunt just had like a closet full of games. And then from that, I got more and more interested into modern gaming. I guess maybe for me as a child, Stratego was a huge influence. And then I did play numerous titles over the years. And then I think the one, even though it's more recent, I think the one that really blew my mind was Pandemic, just because living in a rural community, I did play a lot of board games by myself, and I would do a lot of kind of my own solo modules to try to make Stratego work, for example. And then Pandemic was like, wow, I could just play this every day by myself, and that's what I did. And so that was a big turning point for me.
For me, I think I kind of started late because like I definitely grew up in Taiwan, and then in Taiwan we play like it's kind of like Monopoly, but like a little bit twist. So like there's Taiwan version, and then also like chess, like really really basic board game. So I think it's until maybe 2015 or 16, I would say. That's the first time I saw like there's a game, but like Asia version. So we call it like Three Kingdom Kills. Yeah. So that one we the first time I saw it, and then we played that game like I think every single weekend. We play like 2 or 3 or 4 times every single weekend, and then until like 1 or 2 years after, like one day my brother bring like somehow he just show up like a Catan. He said, "Hey, there's something new," and then yeah, like in 2015, Catan is new for us, and then I just fall in love with the modern board game, like starting for Catan.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I had the CEO of Catan on the program just about a month ago, and Pete Fenlon, he was talking about he wants to position Catan to take over Monopoly. When people across the world, when they think about board games, they don't go, "Do you mean Monopoly?" They mean Catan. And I hear your story is so similar. This is what I love. This is great. So you are on the other side of the globe, and Catan is like that is the first experience for all of us, right? For me, it was Catan as well, growing up in undergrad. So yeah, that's incredible. I just love that.
I don't know, but maybe next generation or the next generation, Catan might be overpriced Monopoly.
Yeah,
maybe.
We'll see. I was just going to ask because I'm sure PJ, your listeners probably know you quite well, but I was interested in your story as well.
So yeah, it's really interesting, and okay, this is going to be fun because none of my guests ever ask me about me. So, but next to board games, I'm my second favorite subject. I love to talk about. So I grew up in Louisiana. Louisiana is known as sportsman's paradise. So if you're a board gamer, you grow up in the board game closet, so to speak, right? Because it's not widely accepted, right? There are very few, although this is changing a little bit. There are more local game stores that are starting to pop up in New Orleans, in Baton Rouge, for sure, but not too much. And most of the games I grew up with playing trick-taking games with my family during holidays, like you said. And then when we relocated to central Illinois, just 4 hours south of Wisconsin, the Midwest is like this mecca. In America, it's like this mecca of just board gamers, right? Like everyone's a gamer, almost everyone. Game stores are everywhere. Wargaming and role playing and miniatures and tabletop board gaming, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Magic the Gathering. I mean, it's everywhere, and you can easily find a community of local gamers to plug into right away. And when my wife and I moved here in 2016, 2017, we had about 20, 25 board games in our collection, tops.
And now look at behind
within 2 to 3 years, we had almost 100. So we were like, whoa. And now we've got, you look behind me. We try to keep it to 300. We try to keep our collection manageable at 300 games. Sometimes we go over, back and forth. We also try to play every single title in our collection a minimum of once per calendar year. We're currently at 81.6% of our collection played in 2025. So that helps us to determine whether or not a game should be sold. Do we need to keep it, or is it something that we love and we're going to keep it forever and it gets elevated to the next level? So yeah. But when I was an undergrad, Catan was the game that got me started in this. When I met my wife, she was already a gamer. She was from Ohio, so she had been in this hobby much longer than me. So we came together in this relationship as gamers. Her more seasoned than me. I just like to talk more than she does, so I have a podcast.
Yeah, just listening to I don't know a lot about Louisiana. I've never visited, but it feels like your story also kind of hints at that I don't know if it's a cliche per se, but just kind of how climate and environment kind of dictates gaming culture, where you do kind of have where the Midwest, I guess what I've heard and I think I kind of believe in is that these frigid winters, let's just stay inside and play games. And I think to a certain extent that also kind of impacts how gaming's perceived in Taiwan a little bit, being like are we tropical, subtropical? I don't even know. I want to say subtropical as a subtropical location. I think it's interesting to think
really
of.
Interesting. you can definitely tie climate to culture. Absolutely. You definitely can do that. As well as topography too, right? A flat like farmland here in central Illinois, right? Big open skies, very flat. There's not a lot of diversity in topography, whereas you're in Louisiana and it's like you're either below sea level or just above it, and there's water everywhere because it's at the mouth of the Mississippi River, so it's got it's a delta. Geographically has more in common with the Nile River Delta region or the Amazon even. So yeah, there's definitely that. There's no winters where you're staying inside, so the only thing to do is play board games with your family and friends, like there is here in the Midwest. So, what about the climate of what is Taiwan like, and has that influenced or impacted the gaming culture there?
I'm going to go first, and you can.
Yeah, you can.
I think there's a couple factors at play that kind of have influenced how people in Taiwan consume board games. And one of it is a lot of time being spent outside. I think another part of it, and stereotypically speaking, I think Asian culture, including Taiwan, in terms of socialization, also likes to spend those moments outside the house. So I think to a certain extent that has kind of especially impacted, I think, heavier, more medium complex gaming, where you physically need a larger table. You're probably inviting people over to your house to play. And while we do have pieces of that culture in Taiwan, of course, every family is different, every host is different, etc. I think there are kind of physical limitations in terms of space, but also people do like to spend their time outside of the house. And I think to a certain extent that has impacted how small boxes, quick games, card games are really going to be the bread and butter of the Taiwan gaming community. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I largely agree. I will say, maybe I have to go like really earlier about, I think like the modern board game, if I mention about like Catan or those kind of games, or Dominion or those kind of games, Carcassonne, I think like at first, there's a company called Swarm Panacea. They are the one bringing all those kind of like for us like modern board games, Catan, those kind of games in 2000, early 2008 or 2007 around. I'm not sure about the time. So before that we know nothing. So after that, this the whole like the industry or like what we say like the category board game things is like starting rooting in Taiwan. So back in the day, I will say we have like there's something called internet cafe. So when we play like online game, we don't really play at house. The computer, everything, laptop is kind of too much, not affordable for like high school people, college people. So usually we go to like internet cafe. And then this, once like the board games start coming to like the country, to like our life, into our life. And now it more become like board game cafe, I would say. In 2000, I think it's starting from like 2012 or 2013. Like the board game industry start growing really fast in the Taiwan. And then there are be like so many board game cafes. So everyone we go to board game cafe to play games. So like I was really surprised when I hear about like when I was just walking on the street and then people talk about like after the dinner or after the lunch, they say, oh, what we should do next. Usually they will be like we go to karaoke or we go to like bar or something like this. I think starting from maybe 2015, board game cafe is an option now. I think maybe Taiwan, most of the people know board games than other countries because the city, because like for example, we from Taipei. Taipei is like the main city in Taiwan. So in Taipei, I would say there are like, I don't know, 100 board game cafe at least.
Wow.
In Taipei. Wow. And then how big is Taipei? How do you describe how big is Taipei?
That's
like,
an on-the-spot question. It's large.
It's large, but not large. Maybe Queen and Brooklyn.
I mean, you know New York better than I do. I mean, Taiwan's not built. Taipei is not built up. Yeah. So it's very, very built out. Sparse, isn't that's not the right word. Built out. So I think you need board game cafes almost everywhere.
Okay.
So yeah,
so in Taipei, there's a lot of urban sprawl outward,
yeah,
rather than built upward.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's interesting. I would have thought there would have been more build upward. The image I have in my mind of Taipei is that it is very built upwards, similar to Hong Kong.
Nope. That's definitely a good example to say. It's not like Hong Kong, I would say.
Well, it's a bit comical because we did build Taipei 101, which at a certain time was the world's tallest building. It just sticks there with not much around it in terms of verticality.
Okay, all right. To be fair, a lot of my impression of Taipei and Taiwan as a whole has to do with the fact that you're on an island. So the reason I expected you to be building up is because you're limited by the amount of ground that you have because you're on an island, right? So I would imagine you build up.
I would say this is a very crude estimation. I would say Taiwan is about the size of Maine in the United States.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe
About the shape isn't the same, but that's a crude estimation. And then we do have, though, pretty extreme urbanization. So Taipei is pretty much the focal point, with a couple other bigger cities as well as you move southwards. But I'm kind of curious though about you mentioned the board game cafes. So I'm curious what you think about space in terms of like board game consumption, because I feel like, because I have friends who really like board games, but there's literally, like, our apartments are too small. Families already have accumulated X amount of things. I have friends who are interested in the hobby, but literally just, if you buy a game, where are you going to put it? And so I think board game cafes have been really healthy in promoting, but in terms of consumption, in terms of buying,
it's really hurting.
It's also kind of having this, negative is a strong word, because promotion's promotion, but you don't need to buy.
I think I also mentioned this a little bit before. It's kind of like the culture things. For us, it's really, I wouldn't say weird, but maybe like 20% of the people are willing to invite other people to come to their house. Usually we are living with our parents, and then like, I'm not sure it's a good word to say, but it's kind of like we are really in, like, our parents, it's not like they are not welcome to others, but it's really like, this is our area. This is our privacy. So it's not, it's kind of weird to having someone come to our house. And then
I would agree.
Kind of like that. We like, just like you say, we like to go outside and enjoy our activities. And then for like the consumption, like there's some of like the, I would say like heavy gamer or like collectors. How they do is like they buy a lot of board games and then they put it at the board game cafe and then let other people to play it. So actually board game cafe, they are a shelf for them to collect, to keep all the board games. But yeah, something you talk about is true. It's going to be hard for us to sell the game because you can just go to board game cafe to play games.
So talk to me a little bit about that. If I were a citizen of Taipei and I am a board game collector, so I've got hundreds of board games in my personal collection, am I renting them to the board game cafe? Am I opening the board game cafe as the proprietor and owner of the establishment? What does that look like?
I think it will depend on like your relationship with the owner of the board game cafe. But like some situation I know is like maybe you are considered as a VIP customer in the board game cafe. So those games you keep it, they are only allowed to give to someone to play, maybe or maybe to like the VIP member, something like this. And then what I also hear about is like if you put the game at the board game cafe, maybe they can teach you the game. They are willing to teach you the game, so you don't really have to go through the rulebook or those kind of things.
Right. So how does that and Phil, I think you asked a little bit about this just a moment ago. I'm really fascinated by how that structure allows a community of gamers to grow if they're not purchasing board games, because it's not fiscally profitable for me to sell my board game if I'm only going to sell it to a handful of cafes rather than 100 or 1,000 gamers. I'm wondering, what is that? So what do you see in the community? Like, what is causing the growth in the community of gamers in Taiwan?
I think there is very mature, very well established channels for bringing in games to begin with. There's lots of healthy communities that just pool resources, and we're going to bring in, 50 copies of Arc Nova, 50 copies of Arcs. And so there is I don't know if collecting's healthy per se, but there's a healthy, established, mature niche of our community that is getting all the hotness, bringing it all in, and you can also go through them, and it's warm, it's inviting, with my experiences, to operate through that channel. I think where there's a lot of limitations is probably in language and localization. So if you want a hotness, quote unquote, that you want in a localized language, that's probably, you're going to start having more challenges there. And if we start thinking about what Taiwanese people want, one issue is the difference between simplified Chinese characters and traditional Chinese characters. Because Taiwan historically and still today operates with traditional Chinese characters, whereas China is simplified. So it's also not really as easy as I'm going to translate this into Chinese and then kind of fulfill both China and Taiwan simultaneously. Because ideally, you have simplified for China, you have traditional for Taiwan. Because I do have several friends who just refuse to buy simplified character games because whether it's
connection to China, mainland, it's connection to mainland China.
It's part of that. It could be a kind of a Taiwanese consciousness, if you will. I think it's also just convenience. I mean, we can read simplified Chinese, but it's not super easy or fast or convenient. So maybe I'll just get the English. Supplying that, I think, is oftentimes for a lot of these games, it is we're going to do less quantity of English games. And that's probably going to be enough to supply who's interested. And then if you're lucky to know somebody, then we just kind of share the game.
Talk to me about the difference between simplified and traditional, right? I know the historical context behind it because I think what you're talking about is Hanzi, right? That's the character language.
Chinese characters.
Yes. Okay. So talk to us about those differences, both culturally and linguistically, and why someone would choose an English copy as opposed to one in their own native language.
I think part of it, to begin with, traditional to simplified, you can, in terms of like grammar, syntax, etc., generally speaking, you can just put your traditional characters into simplified. And the grammar, the syntax is all going to be intact. So part of it is, maybe a part of it is a little bit of an aesthetic consideration. Part of it is if you're not used to simplified characters, and I guess if you don't really know what we're talking about, it's literally just a character might have like 10 lines or 10 strokes in traditional. When the simplified version might only have 3 or 4. So generally speaking, the meanings are the same.
It's easier to write.
It's easier to write. It's quicker to write, etc. To do simplified. But if you don't really live your life in simplified, and then you're just given like a rule book, it is like it's going to take you time. You can fight through it. It's going to take you time. There's also differences in just colloquialisms, sayings, how we say certain things in Taiwan versus China. And even China's, of course, a huge place. Even you have those differences within simplified as well, regionally. And then on top of that, you do kind of have the political issues of, well, I don't really want to live my life in simplified because that might or might not be symbolic of what's happening in China. And so you have all of these considerations put together. And so, as I just mentioned, like I know people who just refuse to buy games in simplified. Sure.
Yeah, because they are getting. What's like the 朝鲜 in English?
You're right. Yeah.
Like if you are not familiar with the plagiarisms.
朝鲜. I'm not doing the right word then.
Oh, like the writing really quick, like the.
Oh, like cursive writing.
Yeah,
okay,
cursive writing. So
Okay.
so same as like if you are doing like the regular writing, but you are familiar with the cursive. I don't know how to say
Cursive.
Cursive.
That's okay.
Yeah, cursive. I think you will just have the difficult to understand.
Okay.
So I think it's kind of likewise.
And then also to go back to PJ's question about like, is English kind of a lingua franca or like a connecting language? I think no, but I think in a lot of play groups, you're going to have somebody who,
Good at English.
at least in terms of like board game language, can get through an English rulebook. And so I think still English language copies are acceptable and not usually a problem, unless it is text that is not open information.
But something, I'm not going to talk about too much about Tokyo Game Market, but like something interesting I saw is...
Before you continue, Tokyo Game Market is a twice-a-year convention in Tokyo.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for yeah. Like I saw there's a lot like foreigner go to the Tokyo Game Market for scouting the new games or something cool, something special like Cat in the Box, like a trio. Those games are original from Japan. Yeah. So something really interesting is like you get to see like how the foreigner start learning Japanese, and then they use like the Google Translate to translate out the Japanese rulebook, try to figure out what's going on, how to read the rulebook, those kind of things. And then I think that's something Phil talk about. Like in Taiwan, we definitely have those kind of groups. They will try to figure out, even if it's the English one, they just love the game, so they will try whatever to figure out.
So how easy, and I think, Phil, you could probably answer this very quickly, how easy would it be for an American that does not speak Chinese and doesn't read Chinese, whether that's simplified or traditional, could come to Taiwan, say I come to visit you guys for a week or 2 weeks, because it has to be a substantial time worth going over there with
Do
all
it,
the
BJ,
costs.
get on the plane.
Right. So how easy would it be for me to plug into a group of gamers and go to a board game cafe, pick up some games, play with some folks, and how accessible are English rule books for an English speaker if they were to go to Taiwan?
I think it's going to depend on your approach. If you do a little bit of homework and you actively reach out to a few people, like if you talk to Lenny, say, Lenny, help me out, I think it's very welcoming and we can get you in the right direction. If you just show up at a board game coffee shop by yourself and you're hoping to just kind of add yourself into a group, I think you're going to experience more challenge there. And I think it's going to be, I see this little thinking face here, maybe you'll disagree. I think it's going to, the stereotype, which I also believe in, is Taiwanese are very, very friendly. I think if a board game group, if they felt comfortable with their English level, it would not be a problem. But if I see you playing, I don't know, I guess I'll go back to Arc Nova, even with an English rule book, but if this group's more oral communication in English, if they don't feel comfortable, you're not going to get a cold shoulder, but it's going to be hard to place yourself into that group.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
But I do think if you do to get into,
there's a lot of like activity or like every week, I would say.
Because my favorite board game shop in Taipei is BG Hut, and like their owners do their English is very good. So like if someone points you in that direction, like I'm sure they'll have plenty of suggestions on how to approach this. I think you do have to do a little bit of homework though, and try to be a little bit prepared.
So we just spent almost 36 minutes talking about all of these complications. It's going to beg the question. So Lenny, let me posit this to you. With all of these linguistical and cultural and political expectations and biases and everything, how do you navigate creating board games in this environment?
So, I think originally I'm pretty sure I'm just like everyone else. How I really start the board game in the industry. It's just because I'm a gamer. I really enjoy the games, and then one day you just kind of think about like maybe you can create some games. So that's how I start originally. But at the same time, also I think this is something funny. But like when I saw Awaken Realms, you know Awaken Realms, right?
I know.
They have
yes.
You know Awaken Realms.
Yeah.
You know they have like Great War. Yeah. They have published the game Great War, and Great War is like the Chinese culture, like the architecture, right?
Sure.
Yeah. And then also like Google, I'm not sure who published that, but like Google, and then I saw like there are a lot of like Asia or Chinese or Taiwanese culture being used on the board game. And then something just come in my mind. How come it's not made by us? That's our thing. We know more than they do. So yeah. So that's why I was thinking about, maybe I have so many ideas in my mind. Maybe one day I can share more detail about the culture, more about from our perspective to the world. So yeah, so that's how I started.
How do you navigate this environment? And I think I kind of think you do, to a certain extent, kind of have two choices. Like, are we going to focus on the Taiwanese market, or are we going to, like we've talked in our communication, like, do we try to face outward a little bit? And I think in Taiwan, you kind of have, I think there's publishers. I think you can look at maybe the publisher in their entirety or at specific games in their catalog, and you can kind of identify, this is going to be Taiwanese market. This is more, can we push this to Europe? Can we push this to North America, etc.? And I think one of the reasons you have to make that choice is because of what you just said, all these complications, the environment. And we have this conversation internally all the time. If you can sell like 500 games in Taiwan, that's kind of successful. For some publishers, you're happy with that. That's totally fair. Yeah. Like, if that's your goal, that's your goal. But once you hit 500, like, it's saturated, and like, where are you going to go? So you kind of have to be making these choices either as a company or on a game-to-game basis. I think that's what you do see in the publishing climate here.
So it sounds like it was twofold. It sounds like when you decided you were going to start publishing games, number one was you realized that you could quickly saturate Taiwan with games, so you had no choice but to look outward. And number two, you wanted to represent your own culture and lend a voice to the Taiwanese culture in board games, so you had to look outward. Palgan said the same thing when he was on the show, talking about the way India was represented in board games, and he's like, we need to represent ourselves. So that is both fascinating and disheartening at the same time.
I will, though, pour a little bit of cold water on this. Okay. Because, I mean, if you look behind me at our games here, we don't really have a Taiwanese themed game. So we do kind of always have this introspection about, like, we want to proudly say we are a Taiwan publisher. How do we do that representation, whether it is or is not in our games? And after some of that introspection and just kind of looking at Lenny's goals and interests and ambitions, like, we are going to be starting a second brand line in 2026, which is going to focus on just medium complexity games, and they're going to be just saturated with Asian culture. So it's going to be it's going to be a pretty big tonal shift for us, and then hopefully we can kind of live up to what Lenny and I just said about us representing us, quote unquote. Right. So we still, I think WWBG still has to kind of walk the talk a little bit on that, but we're having those conversations, and we're excited to move into that direction.
So it sounds like this new, what am I looking for? This new project. I know that's not the right word, but this new project in 2026 is kind of a corollary to the overall WWBG mission statement, as it were.
I will say in this way, maybe I'm too realistic. I somehow a little bit, I'm not saying a lot, but kind of know about like company. If we need to survive, if we need to be profitable, we have to do the right choice. So yes, actually the 2026, the new brand, the new one, is actually like originally my thoughts. Original what I want to do. But, it's risky to do a heavy game and then put like Asian culture on the theme, and then you're not selling well, then the end.
Right.
That's the end. I don't want just one game. I want to continue publishing more games. So this is why it took us really long time. We're publishing like those kind of like great game, but also maybe not really Asian culture things, just to try to understand more about industry, more about knowledge, and then connections.
Okay. I love that. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. I'm not too much like a dream chaser, but still somehow inside of myself, yes.
I'm thinking you're like a board game publishing cherry blossom, right? Like, you had to plant the tree to let the blossom Right? Okay.
We got to put PJ in the
purple
marketing
there.
team.
He's too good at talking.
Might be sentences down.
No, but that's really interesting. Phil, can you talk a little bit in some of our correspondence before this? You had also mentioned, and it surprised me that, and I mentioned it in my intro, that you also serve a French market, or there's a French component to your game line, or can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons for that. So one of our, I would say, flagship games of our brand is Loco Momo, up above me. And so Loco Momo has had a lot of commercial success, and we kind of laugh about it because it just like exploded in France. I think it was Blam. Did Blam take?
Yep.
Yeah, so Blam took Loco Momo, and like it was on BGA, and we kind of hit BGA at the right time where it's still one of the most played games on BGA because it was kind of at that moment where
I think it's 700,000 plays.
Yeah, it's close to 1 million plays on BGA.
Wow.
And so at that moment, we kind of had a realization that I think our Family Plus light strategy games work well in France, whether it's mechanics or theme, etc. We also have a personal and professional relationship with Anthony Perrone, who is a designer, and he also did some kind of contracted development work for us. A French designer with Taiwanese development on the back end, or Taiwanese design on the front end with French development on the back end. And I think we've had a lot of kind of interesting conversations about what that actually looks like mechanically, Taiwan plus France. And some of those conversations are hard to articulate, but of course we can try if you're interested. And with some of that history and French interest, we do continue to try to target that market with all of our titles and try to keep that in mind.
So first of all, we're navigating the complexities of a Taiwanese gaming community, right? Which I think you've done expertly. It sounds like and it seems like you're going to be successful on the inward looking. So outward looking, you're really focusing on if this is fair to say, a US and French market, or
I think, yes, we've been lucky in the French market, and it continues to be a focus of ours. I don't know if our games, when we develop a game, it's not necessarily this is for the French market, but
okay,
we have strong connections with licensors in France, with some media in France, etc. And
maybe because we are in Taiwan, like the east part, and then we are trying to do some game for the American. But turns out mixed together in the middle is France. I'm joking.
Yeah, we've stumbled onto a magic formula. I think I don't have enough background to talk about this, but I think from just our limited observations, France, is a very healthy Family Plus light strategy market.
Yes,
compared to like Germany or Poland or Great Britain, etc. So I think our games themselves also just kind of align with those kind of consumer interests,
which is really interesting. It's well, I don't disagree with what you said. It's interesting that the one game that almost exclusively has brought all of us into the modern gaming hobby, Catan, which is a family friendly light to medium weight game, came out of Germany.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just interesting. I don't know that there's a point to that, but it's an interesting observation to just kind of note off to the side. While we're talking about trivia, I had to look it up. So according to Google, the population of Taipei is 2.5 million people currently.
Sounds about right.
Which is equal to the metro area of Chicago. Not the whole, but Chicago proper, not the entire expanse. So I thought that was interesting. That's just
if that does interest somebody, but because Taipei is surrounded like as a donut by New Taipei City, and the sprawl also includes New Taipei, and so that just really then boosts the number. It's hard to even distinguish where New Taipei and Taipei. But that definitely adds to the sprawl.
I think that's pretty similar. You see that in a lot of major metropolitan areas in the United States as well. Talk to me about your line of games, right? So what I'm saying that wrong.
Loco Moco is good food.
Loco Moco. Momo. Loco Momo. Say it right. So you publish Locomomo. It's wildly popular in France. How do you, like some of your other titles, is there a conscious or subconscious thought about appealing to that French market at all on a design level? And what about other designers that aren't in-house?
I think, unfortunately, Jiwei is not here, our developer.
Oh, yeah.
I think one thing I would say about this is very broad, of course, but I think you can add to this, please. But kind of like design tendencies between Taiwan and France. What I've observed watching these interactions is Taiwan still kind of is, I think, likes to adhere to mechanics. It's very mechanical. We've seen this work. We're going to use it. We're going to twist it, have some fun with it. But it is very mechanical. And then at least my observations with working with Anthony and other French designers that have come through this office is, of course, mechanics are always going to be important, but it's after every single play test, they always just ask us, like, how did that feel?
Really?
And it's a very feel-focused approach. Again, speaking very broadly here, but we can do without this quintessential typical mechanic if it doesn't feel right. We can go a little bit unorthodox if we want the feel to be correct. And so whether it's conscious or subconscious, I think a lot of our games have those two elements kind of side by side, which I think makes for interesting cross-boundary designs where it is quintessential mechanics, but how does this feel the first time you play it? And so I think just through these interactions, a lot of our catalog just kind of goes in that direction, just from healthy development and just these two sides, if you will, just working together.
There's one thing I want to ask. I'm not sure it's really relative, but like for us, it's really hard to play test again because just like what Phil says, in Taiwan, Taiwan like to more focusing on mechanics design, or you can think about it's more like mathematics. So for them, if the mathematics is right, they think the game is good. Yeah. So sometimes when they tell us, hey, the game is really good, you should publish it. But when we show to like maybe our the US partner or like someone like in the Europe, they'd be like, oh, this is boring.
Yeah.
And they would be like, huh? Then what should we do now?
It's interesting that you say that because I have so many conversations with people who they downplay the role and influence of a good theme on a game, right? And I think that's what you're experiencing is I think at least, I mean, I'm going to speak for all Western civilization. We want theme, we want story, give it to us, right? But that's not true because, we're all human beings, we're all complex. But, I know for me, I love theme. I make a point every time. I try to talk about it in every episode, so here it goes. My absolute favorite game is Obsession by Dan Halligan. And I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that the theme is so rich. And it was a theme that I did not personally expect to fall in love with. Right? Victorian England, building an estate in the countryside, right? That's not a theme I normally gravitate towards. However, and it doesn't implement complicated or heavy mechanics. There are definitely better games out there, but this one is my favorite. And it's because of that theme. And it's the shared experience. I talk about this all the time. For me, gaming is about the shared experience at the table, right? I want to have a meaningful and intimate exchange with you or whoever you are sitting across the table from me while we're playing the game. So that's for me. And I know that's true for a lot of people as well. So
I agree with everything that you just said there, PJ, about theme being essential to feel. I think one thing I want to add on top of that, what I've observed from this so-called French school of design is feel can also be a mechanical feel as well.
Okay.
And so when we think about development, when we think about whether it's theme and or mechanics, it is, I just did this action, whether it's thematic or mechanical, how did that feel? And I think one thing we've kind of learned through this cross-boundary design and development approach is you don't really have to be beholden to established mechanisms, established themes, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I mean, for example, with Dragonarium behind Lenny here, which we're going to be kickstarting here in November, is like we have this mechanism that is like it's traditional tile placement. And then when you put a tile on top of the tile that's underneath, if it's full, if its resources are filled, it's going to hatch a dragon. You put the dragon down, and then the gimmick here is the dragon color and the tile color now kind of interweave. So my fire dragon on a water tile is now both water and fire. However, the thing I kind of want to say here, though, is where these resources are coming from is kind of a mechanism I've never seen. I don't even know. We're trying to market it as track movement. That doesn't make sense to me, but we don't know what to call it. And so it is kind of that feel consideration. How should this feel when I'm doing this specific action? And I think as we look at whether it's the Western market or specifically the French market, those kind of two philosophies are kind of coming together.
And you think,
ideally.
Do you agree with that, Lenny? Is that kind of your mindset as well?
We have talked about this, and then like just trying to. Sometimes we debate, but like I think that's something we conclude. I would say yes.
And even if Anthony isn't in the office proper, we do kind of still ask that question almost on his behalf, like how did that feel?
Yeah.
So that simple question has kind of stuck with us, whether he's here or not.
Well, I think Anthony is going to be happy to hear that. So I'm really glad you brought up Dragonarium because it's how you and I met. So my wife was really interested in this game. The mechanic and the theme really hit. I mean, dragons are popular and she was really interested. And so we met and that's how we got to talking about it. Can you tell me a little bit more about where the project is and what people can expect from Dragonarium?
You want me to go?
Yeah.
This one is, I think, our first, I'm just going to say internal design. So it's a co-design from two Taiwanese designers. The first one is Zhiwei, who's also our full-time developer. So he's kind of, I haven't actually talked to him about this, but I'm a little bit curious about developing your own design. What does that actually feel like? And then he is co-designing it with another established, maybe smaller indie designer in Taiwan. And they have a close relationship. They're working out together. They brought it to our attention, submitted it through the normal channels. We had the normal process of, are we going to do this or not? As I just mentioned, we are going to kickstart it in November. So we're looking at a November 11th, maybe 18th launch. The preview page is already up, a little bit bare bones, but we'll be adding to it in the coming weeks. The development's done, art is done. I think we're just looking at one kind of Kickstarter exclusive that the rules are just kind of being touched up. So we're kind of taking that approach of, if you're going to back this, you're going to begin your game quickly and it's just kind of ready to go. I know this is our first Kickstarter project, so we're also a little bit nervous, a little bit excited, feeling all the emotions.
Sure.
But we're quite proud of it. We think it's elegant. It's going to scratch a lot of the itches if you are tile placement, puzzles, a little bit more solitaire multiplayer. Solitaire multiplayer. Thank you. There we go. Got it.
Multiplayer.
Thank you. Got it. So yeah, we're excited. It's pretty much ready to roll out. And
I think
what do you want to add?
I have one thing to add is like because I think since like 2024 we like kind of like figure out a way to enter the US market. So like most of our game, they can like the US audience, customer, they can get it. But like for the Europe, like maybe the only chance you can get it is Essen, because we go to Essen every year. So that's maybe the only chance until like some other like localized partner, they pick it up and then do the localization. Right. Usually it took a year. So like for this Dragonarium, we are going to fulfill like, I'm not saying 100%, but I would say 90% of like all the country in the world. So I think that's also an opportunity for like people, like maybe our fans not in the States, that maybe in like Belgium or maybe in like Poland. If they like our game, that's the way you can get it.
Okay,
I think that's a good point because we've had a lot of success with Lone Wolves, a recent 2-player trick-taking duel game with area majority, and we've had a lot of comments, and like there's a lot of localized publishers that picked it up for Europe, and then we've had emails and comments of like, when is this coming to Australia? And it's just, sorry, I don't know if it is.
It's tough. It's tough.
So I know there's kind of I think there's some aversion to crowdfunding when a publisher already has a game ready to go.
Yeah.
And I think some of that aversion is warranted. But I think as Lenny just said, for a publisher of our size, like this is kind of a channel for us to go outside of where we usually go outside of.
Right. Okay. So Lenny, let me ask you, what's one piece of advice that you have for designers who maybe are looking for a publisher and they're looking for you as a publisher of their game? What are you looking for from designers?
From designers. Okay. I think we talk about this about we have like WWBG, and then also like that we have the new brand coming out next year. So WWBG, you can see like all of those games. I would say maybe it's not really Asian perspective. So those are what we are building for WWBG, which is more focusing on like Family Plus or like kind of like live strategy around category. So I will say we are definitely looking for something. I think it's kind of like everyone is saying like easy to learn and then not too long. Those kind of like the title things. But as a gamer part, we also not only care about how the market works, but we also want WWBG to be more varied. So if you somehow see some of the mechanics we didn't publish, maybe that's something we are looking for as well. For example, I don't know, I'm a big fan of deck building games. I just played Compile. It's so good. Right?
So good.
Right? So good. Hey, come on.
It's thing.
I think I sell other people's games better than our game. I agree with what you said. I think if a designer's listening and maybe that's a little bit too broad, do you think they're like if a designer sends you a sales sheet, what are you looking for?
What am I looking for?
I have my answer, but I think you could maybe for the audience be a little bit more specific.
For me, I think we are definitely looking for I'm definitely looking for like a good hook, and then maybe one shine mechanic why this is different than others. I think that's something I'm not doing like the whole developing jobs, but like for Wei, I know like he has been receiving like submission maybe 20, 30 per week. It needs to be something, picture, line, message, like giving a hook. That's for me. And then for you?
Yeah, I 100% agree. My advice would be you need to think about the 30-second pitch. What is the gimmick? Whether it is a specific mechanical wrinkle, whether it's your theme matches this mechanic very well. That needs to be expressed to the utmost in a 30-second package. Because I mean, when we pitch Dragonarium, I try as quickly as I can to get to verticality, but also your territories are interweaving. So King Domino, you want your seas over here, you want your forests over here. When Dragonarium, the gimmick is the dragon comes down, this territory is now 2 territories. So now these things start to interweave. So you need that 30 seconds that needs to be clear. I think like we do get good ideas, but it's just kind of it's almost like reading a BGG page. Like my mechanisms are A, B, C, D. Right. My theme is this.
That's great advice. That is fantastic, and I appreciate you sharing that with listeners, because I know I have a lot of first-time designers who are in the market for publishers who would probably ask that question. Well, thank you so much for joining, Phil. I appreciate all your work getting this coordinated and everything we went through to get this recording put together. I really appreciate your time. So for listeners, where can they find your games, all your product, your socials, everything? How can people find you?
I would say our best social to follow is probably on Instagram. We're in a couple different places. I was talking to PJ off air. We're trying to improve that. We do have our just kind of official website. As a smaller publisher, we don't have like an online store or anything like that, but we are I would say compared to maybe some of the other bigger publishers, like we answer emails quickly, we're pretty friendly, so just shoot us an email through the website and we'll get back to you ASAP.
You are.
So
I can confirm you are pretty friendly, and so
so yeah, just Google Wonderful World Board Games. The website should pop up. All of our games are on BGG as well.
Yeah.
And we don't have anything up yet for our second line that we're talking about, which is going to be Nuwa, which is in in kind of Chinese history and mythology is a creator deity. So that's NUWA. So if that interests you, something maybe also to look out for in the coming weeks.
So last question, for games that would be published under the label for Nuwa, would they be available also outside of Taiwan if people are interested?
No, go ahead.
That's going to primarily be a Kickstarter, a crowdfunding, a line of games. And then we do have hope and expectation to go to retail release after the campaign has finished.
Okay.
As Lenny just mentioned, though, a lot of our retail channels are very just North American specific. And when I say North America, sorry, Mexico, but Canada and United States. Yeah. And so I'm assuming, maybe we'll probably have conversations about this, but for Europe, maybe also looking at crowdfunding and then licensing partners.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both once again. I appreciate all of your time, all of your honesty, and your openness to share with me and my listeners. Guys, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We have met our 1 year goal just a little bit early. We got over 100 subscribers. So now we're moving on to 1,000. So October 2026, we want 1,000 subscribers. So help us do that. And as always, guys, be kind to each other and play more games.